Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving deep into a really important question in the world of climate action. How can we be sure that a climate project is actually making a difference? Let's get into it.
You know, it's a question a lot of us have. You hear about a project that's protecting a beautiful wetland, and you think, that's great. But then a little voice in the back of your head might whisper, wait a second, wasn't that wetland already there? How do we know this effort is creating a new benefit and not just taking credit for something that was going to happen anyway? It's a totally fair question, and today, we're going to find the answer.
The entire answer really comes down to this one single word: additionality. This is the absolute gold standard. It's the principle that says a project only gets credit if it's doing something above and beyond business as usual. In other words, the good stuff, the emissions being reduced, the ecosystem being saved, would not have happened without this specific project. That's the key.
So, okay, how do you actually prove that? I mean, it sounds kind of subjective, right? Well, it turns out there's a very clear, methodical way to do it. There's a rule book. And for the tidal wetlands we're talking about today, that rule book is our God.
Yep, it's got a technical name, VMD0052, but don't let that fool you. Just think of it as a playbook. It lays out the exact steps, the specific test that any project has to pass to prove it's truly additional. It takes the guesswork right out of the equation.
And we're not talking about some abstract theory here. This rulebook covers real, on-the-ground action. Things like bringing tidal flows back to dying marshes, replanting native species, or protecting vital seagrass meadows. It even looks ahead, making sure we're creating space for these ecosystems to adapt to sea level rise. These are the kinds of crucial activities that need to be verified.
So what's actually in this rulebook? Is it hundreds of pages of complicated math? Well, no. At its core, it relies on a really elegant and surprisingly simple idea, and it all boils down to the 5% rule. The thinking behind it is just common sense, really. If a good thing, like effectively protecting wetlands, is already happening all over the place, then you could argue it doesn't need special support. But if that activity is incredibly rare, well, that's a huge sign that it's facing major barriers, and that any project succeeding at it is definitely not business as usual. Its rarity is the proof.
And the rule book gives us a specific number to define rare, a clear line in the sand. That number is 5%. This is our threshold.
So here's the rule, plain and simple. If we look at a specific activity, like wetland conservation, and we find that it's happening in less than 5% of the total area where it could happen, then any project doing that work is automatically considered additional. Boom, test passed.
Okay, theory time is over. This is where it gets really interesting. We have the rule, now we have to apply it. Let's roll up our sleeves and actually run the numbers to see if global wetland conservation makes the cut. The math itself is actually pretty simple. It's a fraction. We just need to figure out two things. The bottom number, the denominator, is the maximum potential, basically all the tidal wetlands on Earth. And the top number, the numerator, is the observed adoption, how much of that area we're actually protecting right now.
So, let's start with that bottom number. To know how we're doing, we first have to know the size of the playing field. How much mangrove, seagrass, and salt marsh is there on the entire planet?
To answer this, scientists undertook a massive effort, using satellite data to map these ecosystems across the globe. And you can see the breakdown here. We've got huge areas of seagrass, tons of mangroves, and a whole lot of salt marsh. When you pull it all together,
You get this, almost 654,000 square kilometers. That's an area bigger than the entire country of France. It's huge. So that's our maximum potential. That's the denominator of our fraction.
All right, we have our big number. Now for the reality check. Of that massive potential area, how much are we truly and effectively protecting at this very moment? This is the numerator.
and this right here is such a critical point. It's one thing to draw a line on a map and call it a protected area. It's another thing for it to be actually protected. Research found that while over 108,000 square kilometers are technically in protected zones, only about 22% of those are soundly managed, meaning they have real enforcement and resources. When you factor that in, the number of effectively protected wetlands drops all the way down to about 23,800 square kilometers. So now we have our two numbers. We take the area that's truly effectively protected, our 23,819 square kilometers, and we divide it by that massive total potential we found earlier. And what do we get? We get 3.6%. And there it is, the answer.
3.6%. As you can see, clear as day, that is well below the 5% additionality threshold. The data has spoken. Global wetland conservation is a rare activity. It passes the test.
Okay, so we followed the rulebook, we did the math, and we got a number. But so what? Why is going through this whole data-driven process so important?
Well, that mystery we started with, it's officially solved. This 3.6% figure is the proof. It's the hard data that tells us effective wetland conservation is not just happening on its own. It's struggling. It needs our help. It confirms that these projects really are additional, and they deserve our support to keep going and to scale up.
Ultimately, this whole process is about building trust. It ensures that when we invest in climate solutions, we're backing projects that are making a real, verifiable difference. It moves us away from vague goals like let's save nature, and towards measurable, data-driven outcomes. It makes sure that crucial funding flows to where it's needed most.
What's so powerful about this is that it gives us a blueprint, a clear, credible way to verify and scale up our efforts. It provides the confidence we need to act decisively. And that leaves us with one final, exciting question. Now that we have this tool, what's next? What other vital ecosystems can we apply this to?